when TPM first started, I was still working at the American Prospect. That concluded in 2, 3, 4 months in. And that's a whole other story. But in any case, so now I'm working from home, right? I'm a freelance journalist, and particularly with my psyche, kind of just working out of my home 24/7 is not going to work. And so I realized pretty quickly that I needed to have a routine where I, get up, get dressed, and at least go out and work somewhere else for a few hours just to kind of remain sane. And so for me, that was a Starbucks at 19th and R, Connecticut Avenue, 19th and R. I think it's still there. So basically for the first couple of years, a huge amount of maybe more than the first few, maybe the first 3 or 4 years, I don't know exactly, was at that Starbucks. And I did a lot of it there. I bought a lot of coffee, so it was all legit. I wasn't freeloading. So that's where I did a lot of it at first, and then I did it at home. And then when I moved to New York, I kind of set up a kind of a parallel routine in New York. And then after the 2004 election, I wasn't sure what I was going to do professionally after the 2004 election. I never thought of shutting down TPM, but I did. And I went a decent way towards starting a book project that would have meant kind of ramping back TPM, making it a little less of a focus. And I eventually decided that there was a pretty narrow window of time where, even though I didn't have any money, I had enough of an audience and enough of a sort of a patch of online real estate that I could leverage that into creating something. And that a couple years later, things would be more consolidated and I would not have that opportunity. So I needed to do it then or never. And that ended up being pretty prescient, I think. In terms of how the media environment was changing. So it was basically kind of ramp back or ramp forward. And it was over the course of 2005 that we launched TPM Cafe. And then at the end of 2005, raised some money from readers for Muckraker. And so at that point, we're kind of getting 2 or 3 employees, and you need an office. So we ended up renting a live work, kind of like a little live work space in what remains of the Flower District in New York City, which was this is 28th and 6th Avenue.
This is it. This is where we do what we do. It is a small space, about 800 square feet. Any given day, there's anywhere from 5 to as many as 8 people here working on Talking Points Memo, TPM Muckraker, TPM Cafe, Election Central, etc. This is where we're constantly monitoring cable news shows and stuff like that to see where the latest outrageous statement is made. As you can see, it's not too much to look at, but it's not really where our emphasis is, although there's sort of a push from staff now to beautify the place a little and make it a little nicer. So we're working on that.
We had a mouse die in the wall of that space, which made the place almost unoccupiable. I'm trying to remember what happened with that. I guess they eventually kind of busted into the wall, and I have no idea. It was a whole big, people wearing like smelling salts under their nose, under their, it was really, it was almost impossible to be in there. There was a shower there. No, people weren't taking showers, or at least not when, there's always been a sort of an underworld life of TPM with the younger staffers, of things that happen when management isn't there. So you'll have to ask other people about that. I know that Ben Craw lived in that office for significant stretches of time, which I was always, happy to have happen if that worked for him. In 2009, and again, this was sort of like another ramp up in the organization's history. We bought our first, we leased our first kind of real office, and that is still the office that we are at least nominally still in New York City. That office, which is about 10 blocks away from the other one. We've been there for a decade, and so that's the whole that's the real estate history of the TPM empire.